Hello everyone and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics video on the channel. It is Thursday and for the second to last time for the season, we have some captains for you ahead of round 23. Crazy, there's only a couple of rounds to go. Sorry, couldn't quite get out of there. But anyway, 2 rounds to go. And yeah, it's come very, very quickly. Captains last week, bit hit and miss. What we had, Nasai at 1 was good for 118. Baz for a 120 at number 2. Grundy at 3 for an 83. Marshall at 4 for a 135, and then Holmes at 5 for an 85. So third and fifth, not great, but the other 3 are not too bad as well. And obviously, it wasn't the exact same order as we've got on the video, but teams do change a few things in terms of maybe some tags or if there's another ruck that comes in for a team. So always make sure you guys do tune in on the Pre-Lockout Chat on Friday afternoons, and that's where you get my up-to-date rankings, and then I do update my top 5 on Captain Change, the website, as you guys can see on the screen hit there. So I do update that all the time ahead of the round. But let's go through my top 10 captains ahead of round 23. And we'll start off at number 1. And at number 1, I've got Marcus Bontempelli up against West Coast. So, again, he's got a decent record against West Coast. His last 5, 103, 140, 80, 135, and a 117. So some good scores in there. But the Bont has just been in very, very good form. Multiple scores over 120 in his last 5 or 6 games. We saw what Jordan Dawson did to West Coast last week with the 147, and I think the Bont can do something pretty similar on Sunday afternoon. So this is a captain option, obviously, in the final game of the round. So since he had that 50 score against St Kilda in round 14, he's had, how many games is that? So 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, wait, is that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? So 8 games since that game. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scores over 120 points, including a 166, a 146, and a 133. And he's had that one score, that 72 against Sydney in round 16, when that game was all, the ground was obviously chopped up. A lot of poor scores that game. And then GWS, where he's went a 97. But in good games, like Melbourne, he went the 120, Essendon a 146, Crows, he had a monster game, the 166, North Melbourne a 133, and Richmond 120. So the Bont at the moment is feasting on these good matchups, and West Coast is another good matchup. And we saw last week that West Coast actually moved guys like Hoff and Baker actually to half back, and actually worked. They put guys like McCarthy, Tim Kelly, trying to think, Jack Graham, guys like that in the midfield. And I think that's going to happen again because they played quite well. So I think the Bont is going to feast in this matchup like Dawson did. So I've got the Bont at number 1. And West Coast are also a pretty good matchup for inside mid. So over the last 5 weeks, they are giving up about 4.6 plus 4.6 points to inside mids over the last 5 weeks. So they've been a green matchup all year. So I'm expecting the Bont to have a good game once again. Number 2 is probably going to be an interesting selection in terms of probably there's a few guys have got above him. I've got Jordan Dawson up at number 2 at the moment. And this is at time of recording. Funny enough, number 1 has been fairly set most of the week in Bont. But 2, 3, 4, and 5, even 6 to an extent, I've been tossing these next 5 guys up and switching them almost every other day, right? I've currently got Jordan Dawson at number 2. He's up against Collingwood, who over the last 5 weeks are a pretty good matchup for inside mids. They're plus 6.7, and over the last 5 weeks, that is only behind Richmond. So it's the second best inside mid matchup over the last 5 weeks. And Jordan Dawson loves playing Collingwood. His last 4 against them in particular have been amazing. 138, 117, 172, and a 112. He scored an 85 in his 5th game. That might have been even as he was a defender, because that was a fair bit ago. But that 172 and the 138, the ones that stick out. And the 138 was against Collingwood earlier in the year. And that day, he was obviously went great. Was at the MCG where he loves playing. But he had the 27 touches, 9 marks, 8 tackles. Kicked 1 goal, 1 as well. And we know Jordan Dawson can rack up across all the stallions. So he's got a high ceiling. He's a good VC option, which I think if you've got a late guy playing, I think he's a good option. And I just think Jordan Dawson can have a really good game. A big game for the Crows, which I think is a good thing for a guy like Dawson, because it means he's going to play a lot of midfield time, and he's going to play high time on ground as well. So last 2 weeks he's played 91%. And that's where he's gone quite big. 125 before the 147 last week. And then the other big game they had was against Western Bulldogs with a 129. So when he plays a lot of the game and doesn't get rested for it or anything like that, like he did a little bit against Gold Coast, against Port as well, where he rested the last bit, he's been really, really good. So Jordan Dawson for me sits at number 2, a little bit higher probably than a few others, but Dawson I do like this week. Ryan Marshall sits at number 3, and he was number 1. So I did say Bont's been a lot for a lot of the week, but that's more because since it's been Marshall or Bont really number 1 for me. But Marshall's gone down to 3 because the fact that Alex Dodson's making his debut, and he's a lot more of a ruckman compared to Max Heath. That's my slight worry. He's still got to be higher, though, on the list. Ryan Marshall, 135, 117 and 100 in his last 3 against Essendon. And obviously, we know Marshall's form over the last few weeks. So he has gone 135 and 142 in his last 2 games. And he's obviously got Essendon, who's a great matchup. And if you look at, again, DFS, Essendon's still a pretty good matchup. Plus 4 points over the last 5 weeks. That's inside mids. They're plus 1.1 for rucks, right? So it's fairly neutral, right? But if you do look a little bit at Essendon's recent opponents and who they've played, I dare say we'll probably look at these rucks, and they're probably not up to the top fantasy rucks, right? So you look at Geelong, so Sydney, that was Grundy. Grundy obviously feasted. He went 150. The Bulldogs, I think English had a quieter game, that one, but then GWS, Richmond, Gold Coast. So not really any of the top dogs for rucks, and I just think Marshall was going to feast and could do very similar to what Brody Grundy did with the 150. I've just got him lower just with Alex Dodson there. I feel almost, am I overreacting because Max Heath's been in there, and I've had Marshall lower because I feel like the ceiling is capped slightly, but he just keeps pumping out massive scores. But I've got him at number 3. I just do think Dodson's a lot more of a ruck than what Max Heath is. But we'll have to see, right? So, and even if Marshall is forward, he could kick a couple of goals and go quite well. So he's sitting at number 3. Sitting at number 4 is his teammate, Nasai Wanganeen-Millera. So the reason he's just a little bit lower than Marshall is just because Marshall's not going to tag, right? Nasai, Essendon have surely got a plan for him, right? You'd think so. But even still, I think he's going to go well. So his last 3 against Essendon, 113, 71, 79. Not really looking too much into that there. But Essendon, 4 inside mids, plus 4 points. I got that right that time. That was when I said for Marshall there. But for rebounding defenders or designated kickers, they're plus 10.7 points over the last 5. So really good matchup for either. Means Sinclair might even have a pretty good day here as well. But Nasai Wanganeen-Millera, regardless of where he plays, if he gets attention in the midfield, he's just going to go into defence. So that's the good thing about Nasai. I think he's a good VC option on Thursday night. So he sits at number 4. And then sitting in at number 5 is Tim English. And part of me feels that this is quite low for Tim English. So his recent history against West Coast been pretty much up and down, right? So 98, 146, 132, 95. So it's been a 90 or a 130 plus score, right? So I think he's going to go really, really well. And we know that West Coast is a pretty good matchup for rucks. Over the last 5 weeks, they are giving up plus 2 points. So fairly neutral. But when Matt Flynn's there, we know that he does give up a few more points. I'm actually interested to see, what did Riley O'Brien score against Flinney last week? So he turned up with a 103 and had 51 hitouts, obviously. So if English is going to get 30 plus hitouts, that's when he can really put up some big scores. And we know English, he gets forward and takes marks, kicks goals. I think that's another thing that raises that ceiling. And in games where English has had over 30 hitouts, so you scored a 102 against Brisbane, then you go early against St Kilda, scored a 120, then against Hawthorn a 139. Had a lot of hitouts against Geelong, but that was that really weird game at GMHBA where he had a 95. But a lot of the time, that's where his ceiling can really get up when he gets those 30 plus hitouts. He can kick a goal or two and he can get touches around the ground, which is exactly what I think he could do because West Coast is also a good matchup for midfielders. So I think Tim English is in for a big day, and I've got him rounding out my top 5. Let's go through 6 through 10. So Harry Sheezel comes in at number 6 against Richmond. 102, 100, 129 in his 3 games against Richmond. So turned up in every game against them in his career. And Richmond, again, still giving up points across the board, even over the last 5 weeks as well. They're giving up plus 8.4 points to inside mids, which is what Shee's been doing a lot last few weeks, a lot more CBAs. Even if he played as more of that forward, they're still giving up points there, Richmond are. And even if he floats into defence and gets those plus 6s, they're really, really good matchup for those defenders, right? So I think no matter what, I think She's going to be able to rack up a good score. The last time he played Richmond, though, so 102, he had 10 tackles, but that was at Tackle Fest. I think Colby had like 10 tackles. It was all about Nank and Tristan Sherry. But since that mid-season bye, Shees was just getting it done. 119, 131, 116, 65 against Hawthorn. Copped a shoulder injury towards the end of the game, and they got completely blown off the park. 93 against the Dogs, short break off of that shoulder niggle. Then a 113, 102, 111, 117, 108. So Sheasel's getting it done. I think he's a good captain option on the Sunday. Probably not the VC, obviously, because it's too late in the round. But I don't know if he's got the same ceiling as what he does in that halfback role. But he does still sit at number 6. Number 7, I've got Josh Dunkley. He's really up the list just based on form. Like, his form's been great. So he's last 5 games, all over 110. 3 of those include over 130. So 137, 133, 112, 113, 132. Just getting it done. Last 3 scores against Freo, 126, 81, and a 115. So, again, pretty good history against Freo recently. And if I'm not mistaken, that 81 that he scored against Freo, was that an early... Did he get subbed out early or something like that, or was he managed? I'm just having a look at that one there. Maybe not. No, just 81. Just not a great game, but he had 17 touch, but 8 tackles still. So I just think he gets it done. I think this is a good matchup for Josh Dunkley, and I think he'll have a good score. Based really a lot on form, and that's why he does sit as my number 7 option. Moving to, actually, hang on, and also I probably should mention, I've got so much stuff to remember. If you look at Freo for as a matchup for inside mids, they're not too bad. They're plus 4.9, so that's behind Collingwood, it's behind Port, it's behind Richmond over the last 5 weeks. So it's a pretty decent matchup over the last 5, and we saw what Zach Butters did last week with the 122. So I think Josh Dunkley is going to go quite well. So he's at number 7. Max Gawn is at number 8, so he's up against the Hawthorn. So they're, again, a decent matchup for Rucks. They're about neutral over the last 5 weeks, but they've been giving up points pretty much all year, like sort of sporadically. Those better Rucks can put up some good scores there, and Gawn's got a really good record against them of late. So 113, 107, 100, 89, and a 149. And obviously a few of those are mixed in there with like when he was sharing a bit of ruck time with a Grundy or a Jackson, but some really big scores in there. And again, if you look at Gawn across the whole season, he's just really safe and solid. So since round 4, when he obviously started sort of pretty average, from round 5 onwards, the only games he hasn't gone over 110 against St Kilda up in Alice Springs where he went 107. Gold Coast won the toughest matchups for an 89. Adelaide won the toughest matchups for an 89. North Melbourne won the toughest matchups for an 88. And then Carlton, where they had Pitney and De Koning, and that's a hard matchup when both are playing. Outside of that, he's gone over 110 every other week. His last 3, 123, 113, 121. So I think he's just a really good, solid, safe option. So if you're going a VC early in the round, he could be a captain option that you sort of fall back on the Saturday afternoon against Hawthorn. So I do like Gawn. He sits at number 8. I've got Jack Sinclair at number 9. So he's probably slightly lower than, I guess, where other people might have him. A few people might have him towards the top sort of this, maybe number 6 or 7. Essendon, great matchup for defenders. Obviously, as I mentioned before, with Nasai, Wanganeen, Miller. So they're giving up plus 10.7 points to rebounding defenders. And his history against them, 104, 99, 81, 101. So not great, right? But I think Sinclair can really cash in this matchup. The one thing I wonder is, does Guelphy go to him? That's my worry. That's why he's slightly down the list. I just think there are better options this week that won't get attention. I think Guelphy could spend some time on him, but we did see he didn't really spend a lot of time on Whitfield. He went to Dale, but that was probably more the fact that Dale had 49 touch against them the last time they played. They wanted to shut him down. Whereas Sinclair, I think he can still get it done. I just sort of wonder, does he get some attention from a Guelphy? So he sits at number 9. I've got Lockie Whitfield at number 10. So obviously last time he played Gold Coast, it was that game where he got concussed early on a 23, which will scar a lot of people. So a lot of people probably won't go there. But his history before that, 145, 106, 106, 91. And Gold Coast is a good matchup, giving up plus 4.5 points to rebound defenders over the last 5 weeks. And I think this is a matchup where Whitfield can really sort of get it done and put up a good score. So I've got Whitfield rounding out my top 10. And also just to mention to Nick Dacos, who I've got at number 11. Where is Nick Dacos here? So there he is. Number 11. So scored 88 against the Crows earlier in the year. Before that, though, 115, 120, 99, 147. So he has got a pretty good record against the Crows. I think that someone like a Peatling or a Chase Jones will try and go with a Dacos. And the Crows will know, right? Don't get beaten by Nick Dacos. It's at Adelaide Oval. It's a tougher matchup. I just think there are better options. They've got good matchups this week. But if you want to go VC on Nick Dacos, he's got the ceiling. He could still get it done, particularly if Collingwood do play quite well. So, let's go through the other options, though, that aren't in my top 10. So, obviously, talk about English, talk about Sheasel, talk about Sinclair. So, Baz isn't on the list. More just because I just wondered, does he get attention? Is it going to go to Baz or Holmes? So just because of that, I think they're better options this week. I'm just not worrying about it. So hopefully Baz goes well anyway, but I'm just skipping over that matchup just for this week because Richmond next week could be the matchup we target Baz for. Tristan Cherry, look, he's an option, right? Obviously had 155 against him early in the year, but he has not tonned up for a very, very long time. The last ton that he had was actually against West Coast for a 111 in round 13, and all of us thought that was slightly unders, right? His other ton before that was in round 10 with a 155, so only one ton since round 10, and there's just some average scores, 86, 93, 84, 93, 96, 58, and then comes back with an 83. And if you look at his tackle numbers this year, only 2 games this year he's had over 10 tackles, so that's not getting it done in terms of those ceiling scores we saw, because he was tackling for fun at the end of last year and putting up those massive scores. His marks are down. He's only had 1 game over 3 marks. Sorry, he's only had 2 games all season over 3 marks, and that was in round 1 against the Dogs, and then in round 16 against Hawthorn where he took 5. Every other game is 2 or less, including the last 3 where he's had 1, 1, and 0. So if he's not marking, not putting up those big tackle numbers, and he's not really getting the ball much either, he's really relying on hit-outs and getting his 7 or 8 tackles just a ton up. So I just don't... The ceiling is there. Like, he's still got access to it. I'm just worried at the moment. Just he's not looking like the same Cherry that we saw at the end of last year. So I'm just skipping over him for the time being. Obviously, talked about Gorn before. Sam Darcy, look, you like draft, yes. Classic, probably not. I'm just looking at like a Bont or something like that this week. Noah Anderson scored a 133 against Giants earlier this year. I just think, though, that this is such a big game for Gold Coast and GWS that Giants are probably going to look to maybe do something in terms of a tag. They haven't tagged for a while, but this is a big game, and I think that you want to probably try and shut down the captain, Noah Anderson. And there has been times where he's been tagged and put some low scores up. So I just wonder how he's going to go if he does get attention. But if he doesn't, I think he can put a good score up. So he could be a VC show if you want to go there. I just think there are better options this week because even though Giants have been giving up some points sort of sporadically throughout the year, last 5 weeks they're a minus 12.9 for inside midge, which is the hardest matchup going around over the last 5 weeks. So I'm just probably passing just with the matchup. Zach Butters, I think cops the Cooper Lord tag, so I wouldn't be going there this week. Obviously, Grundy, unfortunately, is out this week. Colin McKercher against Richmond, good matchup. I just think that he doesn't have that same ceiling as a lot of these other guys. I think he had like a 124 and a 119, but besides that, hasn't really had many other scores that go well over 120 compared to the other players that we're talking about here. So again, if you want to be a bit unique and do something different, you certainly could go there. I just think that there are other options this week I'd probably look at. Obviously, Merritt unfortunately won't be playing this week. Holmes likely to get the Jordan tag, but as I said, if it goes to Baz, I just don't really want to go near either. Jeremy Cameron against Sydney, it's a pretty tough matchup. I'm not looking there. Tom Green, can't trust him. I know Gold Coast, a great matchup. He had a 119 against him earlier in the year, but just can't trust him. Kennedy probably doesn't have the same ceiling as those other dogs, so I'm not looking there. Matt Rao could be an option. It's a tough matchup, but I think Rao could still get it done. Ed Richards doesn't have this, again, a bit like Kennedy, doesn't have that consistent ceiling, but West Coast a good matchup. And that's probably really what we're looking at this week there in terms of captains for the options. So at this moment in time, I'm currently VC on Dawson into the Bont because I do have Jasper Auger in my forward line. So if he's not named, I'll be able to loop Dawson into Bont. And if Bustling is dropped as well, I can do that same loop. But if they're both named on the off chance they are, I'll probably go one of Marshall and Nasiah VC into a Bont or a Dawson if I want to choose between the top two. That's probably where I'd be looking at there because that would be one thing I'd employ you guys to look at because a lot of the loop options play early. So if you look at the fixture, Essendon and St Kilda, a lot of red dots there. They play the very first game of the round. Maybe you got maybe some like Gold Coast or like Nick Madden's a red dot. He plays early in the round. Melbourne, so like a Menth that a lot of people got. He plays the twilight game on the Saturday. Charlie Edwards, a pretty common red dot. He plays Saturday night. Then you go to Sunday. Obviously, you've got Jasper Auger if you've got him there. Maybe you've got a North player that's not playing. Sydney Geelong, not sure if there's too many red dots there. And then maybe you got like a West Coast or a Dogs red dot. So I just say check your red dots and make sure that you do put a VC on someone that plays before that red dot because, a lot of the common options like your Harry Boyds and and guys like that all played the very first game of the round. So I'll just be checking that out. But that is captains for round 23. Let me know in the comments below, guys, what you guys doing with your captains for round 23. And yeah, that'll be it from us. But we'll be back very, very shortly because we'll be live for our AFLW Fantasy Round 1 Pre-Lockout Chat. So really exciting, answering a heap of your questions ahead of Round 1 and getting our teams all set, ready to go because we've got a double header tonight. So no footy on tonight for the men's. The women's AFLW will be on tonight. So looking forward to that. So if you have got your AFLW team sorted, head over and we can answer all your last minute questions there. And if you haven't registered a team, head over to aflw.fantasy, get your team in. Obviously, Hilux is there for whoever comes first, hats for top 100. And then just a really good challenge there as well. Slightly different to the men's. Same scoring and everything, but in terms of just a different challenge. Shorter season, and it's really a whole lot of fun. So if you aren't burnt out by the men's season, I would highly encourage you to head over to AFLW Fantasy and get involved because, yeah, it's really good fun. So, yeah, make sure you join the Patreon as well if you'd like to join for the last couple of weeks. Shout us a pint, shout us a coffee. Patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics is where you can find us there. And, yeah, make sure you do smash your big thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. 5K is our next big goal, so if you can help us reach that, that would be very, very much appreciated. And we'll catch you guys very shortly for our pre-lockout chat for AFLW. If not, tomorrow we're back for our pre-lockout chat for the men's, going through everything ahead of the last game of the season. Might be slightly a bit of a shorter one, just because obviously the free kick team will be doing their AFLW stuff, so we'll sort of work around that. But at this stage, same time, same place, 6 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Perth time, doing that once free kick team are done with their stuff, and then the Ball Boys as well. So, beautiful. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Good luck with your captains this week. We'll chat to you guys soon. Thanks everyone. Have a good night. See ya.